I have been buying parts, and parts. I'm not sure what it's going on here. I've got something about buying things in threes for some reason. I've got 3 fuel gauges, and then I think I've got 3 of these capacitors, and then what have I got? 3 sets of blocking rings, 3 of these lids for your trailer socket and things like that. I bought 1,600 locking keys for the valves just because I could. Ford ones, they're around here somewhere. 3 hats down there. There's something weird going on here with threes, guys. I'm really not sure what it's about. In case you didn't believe me, here are 1,600 Ford valve locks. They weren't expensive, so I got them. So I haven't actually opened this yet, so let's have a look. It's tough. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Normal packing slip for Ford stuff. Who packed it? 598. 1598? 598 packed it. There we go. 8 kilograms. No, 8 bags. 8 bags of valve locks. Here they are. These little guys. Yeah, I found these cheap, and I thought, you can't sniff at 1,600 Ford locks, can you? So if anybody needs any, I've got 1,600 of them. But I've also been buying loads of other stuff, because this Jeep, as you guys know, is from the ground up, so it's just about getting hold of things, really. Original wiper blades in there. This is going to have hand wipers on it. You know, more valve bits and bobs, NOS stuff. I'm trying to buy NOS where I can, guys, because NOS is good. Of course, NOS is often rusty and things like that as well, but there's like wing nuts in there for the air filter bracket. Loads of the TAS parts for my transmission. I've got all the bits for the transmission apart from the input shaft, which is slightly annoying. They're out of stock everywhere, but this is it. This is going to be a complete TAS transmission, this one. So it's going to be all the good stuff. Found this really cool. Some random company was making gaiters, you know, the leather boot gaiters for the transmission shafts and things like that. These are really nice. They're all stuck in there, but these are really high quality. So they should look really cool. And then a massive order from Paolo from the long olive drab line, or the olive drab line, should I say. Can't remember which way around it is actually. But Paolo creates some really good repro stuff in Italy. It takes a while for him to get it out to you, but it does eventually arrive. And when it does, it's really high quality stuff. It's like, where is this? This cool fan belt. That's pretty cool. Loads of stuff in here. My body bolts, everything. More trailer socket stuff as well. So loads of bits and bobs, guys. Loads of bits and bobs. I'm not making it up about this 3 thing. Look, I got 3 hoods as well. I got a Ford, an early ACM one, and then a Willys of France one, which I'm going to convert to an early ACM one. But the Willys of France one is brand new and NOS. It's quite impressive, but it needs some work doing to it. And there's some slight differences between it and the original World War II ones, which we'll probably look at some point. But unless you know the differences, they're pretty difficult to spot, or practically impossible to spot. Seriously, 3s. I got 3 of these shifter rails as well. Now, there is a reason why I've got 3 of many things. You can see shifter rails jammed in the transmission there. It's because a lot of NOS stuff comes to you and, you know, it's corroded or bent. These shifter rails, despite being brand new, one of them is bent somehow. So, you know, I end up buying stuff and then have to get replacements for it or something like that because it's not usable, which is slightly annoying. And Mose has been overseeing everything. So that's the reason that we're ending up with a lot of the same sort of thing, guys, is because I'm buying stuff and I'm finding better stuff, or it's broken and needs replacing. Thanks, Mose. Just have a look at some things, guys, just in the messy garage. You guys might be interested to see this stuff. There is hidden away down here. Look at all this stuff. We've got a perolator filter here, guys. An interesting note with this, right, is that the perolator filter, this one, was painted with its bands on by the factory, and you can tell it was the original paint because, can you see, if I can get it, the inlet marking there? So that means that's the original paint, and look, they painted it with the bands on, which is interesting, but of course I've seen ones without, which weren't painted with the bands on, so that's pretty neat. Thanks, Mose. And then another thing, got a new camshaft, brand new old stock camshaft, guys, from World War II, and I took it out of its, had it in here, and look what it says on the end of it. For a second, I was quite concerned I'd actually been sent a rifle grenade or whatever this is, guys, but fortunately it does actually have a new old stock camshaft hiding inside it. But it's some of the fun things about getting NOS stuff. Sometimes you find things like that. The packaging and what have you, we've already looked at this, is pretty cool. So guys, guys, we come down to a local machine shop, which is actually quite rare to find these in the UK these days, because a lot of them have, you know, they've dried up, they've gone. I think they're more easy to get to find in the US, but in the UK, finding good machine shops is actually quite difficult. So to find something like this, old school, is pretty good. So I'm quite pleased with that. But what we've got, guys, you can see down there is this block, this unknown block. So, you know, for getting a cheap block, of course, there's always going to be some issues that arise. You could be lucky, you could get one which doesn't have any problems. But this one, as you guys know, we had the big weld repair on the on this side here, the big cast iron repair. So we got that done. A couple of studs need doing, that's not a problem. But one of the other things we found then, the guys have discovered while working on this and doing the crack testing, is that we've got some exhaust cracks there, which are pretty common for the Jeep. Actually, this motor's not too bad with cracks, actually. You often get loads around the studs and what have you, but we've just got these guys. We've got a small one at the stud there, and we've got these two larger ones here. Now there's something they can do about these which I wasn't aware of, which is laser crack welding. I hadn't heard of this before, but apparently they can get in here with a little laser and weld it right up, apparently. So that's where it's going to be sent off to next before we can do anything else. I was going to put cast iron, or should I say I was going to put hardened valve seats in it, but I don't think it's really worth it with this. Having discussed it with the guys here, it doesn't really seem worth it. So we'll get this welded, and then we'll have these seats redone. Which should all work out pretty nicely for it. One of the things that you have to do, you can't leave these cracks if you're going to put the hardened seats in it, because apparently the seat is a sort of a tolerance or an interference fit, and it pushes the block apart here, and it'll use the crack to separate itself, and then the seat can hop out. So that's why you can't leave cracks if you put in hardened seats in, apparently. But one of the other things, guys, then is we're on crankshaft number 3. I've had a bit of a problem with that. I'll show you what was wrong with the first one, which is home. The second one we got had a crack on it as well, but this is the third one, and this is a 30 oversize crank. It's been a bit corroded, and it's also been worn as well, so it's probably going to have to go to 40, so hopefully we can keep that at 40. But yeah, it's been a bit of a game playing with crankshafts. I've been down here a couple of times bringing them down. But we'll head back home, guys, and have a look at this other crankshaft then. And this is the other crankshaft. Ready to see something really annoying? Standard, 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 ready. Oh dear, that is not good. That's over 80,000. Whoever assembled this crankshaft previously, you know, if you could recover it, of course, it's pretty rusted and things like that, you know, on the seal there. But whoever assembled it didn't put the bearing shells in the correct way round, and the oil holes must have been blocked. So this one is completely worn out. So this is a standard crankshaft, apart from that one single journal there. So you could probably ground it out to, you know, 40, 50, 60 thou or something like that, but now it's completely dead. So this is junk, this crankshaft, which is a real shame, because I'd have liked to have used it, but nah. And the head as well, guys, to quote Pulp Fiction, head's dead. Unfortunately, this corrosion on it, it goes too close to the combustion chamber. We've got these elongated coolant holes here. This thing really suffered from bad corrosion. And they just run too close, I think. There are some bits, if you just have a look around, where you can see how close it goes. And I really don't want to have to run the risk of it getting into the combustion chamber, because the way the gasket sits here, there's a bit of metal which runs along here, and there's really no gap between it. So I think this head for me is dead. Maybe someone could recover it, but not me. So we're going to have to find another head, unfortunately. Here's another neat thing as well. How can you tell instantly that that fuel filter is original and the decal on it is original? Now, obviously, this one's quite obvious that it's original. You know, it's not difficult to tell just by the wear on it. But one of the interesting things is that the guys in World War II, when they were putting these decals on, they didn't just slap them on and leave them. Obviously, petrol is a really strong solvent, so any sort of leakage, which is going to happen on a fuel filter out the top and what have you, and all around it, decal's just going to come straight off. So what they did then is they covered it in a varnish or a lacquer, which you can see on here. And original decals have this varnish and lacquer sealing in the decal. You can see there's nothing on the back, and you can see how it's all done around here. The GPW had exactly the same thing on it. Over the years, this varnish, I think, has gone yellow. I don't think it would have been this dark yellow when it was put on there. You know, it's just a sort of old varnish colour. So when it was first put on there, you probably wouldn't be able to see the varnish. But just an interesting detail, if you're redoing your fuel filter, it's really obvious straight away that it isn't original, even if the decal looks really good, because it isn't varnished in like this to protect it, like they did in World War II. But that is just a neat little detail, you know. Probably not, you probably can't say that about all of them. There are probably factories which didn't varnish it, you know, but just the ones that I've seen have been varnished, so that's quite an interesting little fact there for you. The eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed in the background there that my transfer case is complete. I'm really pleased with it. It's fantastic. Everything inside it is brand new old stock, okay? I mean, it wasn't strictly necessary required to do with this, but I really wanted to see how it would work out if I did it old stock, and yeah, it feels differently definitely to the GPW one, you know, just the amount of play in it and movement is very different, and noise and what have you, so this is going to be really good. Just as one of the notes, guys, one of the hardest things about this doing this transmission case, should I say transfer case, was removing the rivets for the old data plate. For some, I don't know what they're made out of, but drilling them was practically impossible, and then after drilling them, I ended up just having to go at them with the cutting disc to get the heads off, and then tap them out with a punch, and even that was blooming difficult. So God knows what they're made out of, titanium or something like that, but I couldn't drill them. It was really bizarre. But that was one of the hardest things on working on transfer case. But this is done, guys. This is ready to be finished off and painted properly and get the data plate put on it. One of the things just to bear in mind quick, before you put on your handbrake or your e-brake drum, okay guys, make sure you put this bolt in here for the e-brake, because if you put the yoke on and the drum, you can't slide the bolt in from this side because it sits there like that, and it keeps it out of the way. So just remember that, because that's really annoying if you've got to take that handbrake drum off again. But yeah, pleased with that. That's ready to go. I tell you, the prophecy of 3 is true. I've just found 3 distributors as well, and then looking down here, I've got 3 intermediate gears as well. There's the one over here which I'm not using, that previous one back there, and there's the one in the case as well. So I'm not entirely sure what it all means. It's probably biblical or something, but yeah, we'll see, hey. But that's it for this week, guys. We're all done then. We're going to move on playing with this. This needs to go back together. I need to put some poppet ball springs in there. But the transmission's got to be sorted out. He needs the that gear in the front there, and then he can go on, the bell housing can go on, and then we've got a complete running gear sorted. Tub's coming back from Barry Ring, who's rebuilding it at the moment, and the motor should be done shortly as well, and we can start building that, and I love building motors. But that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Like and subscribe, and I shall see you next time. Cheers.